Go for the dough. Hey, go to your and do it dough. Yeah, go for the. Hey, hey, do what I do.
Okay, welcome to the Great Area Show, where we discuss topics where they are great areas. And this week I have a special guest, Tafadzwa Insights. I mean, the man behind, I think it's a lot of, can I call it philosophies, shows. How are you, man?
I'm good. I can say maybe my content is quite it's hanging around politics and philosophy and also social issues. But these days I've just started doing more of policy, which is something that is within my professional qualification. Yeah, I think that's basically what I'm actually all about.
Okay, and I've seen a raging debate about journalists. Are you? Which side are you?
I've seen the topic about Marco and the whole conversation about it. I feel like sometimes as Zimbabweans we just take things a little bit too serious. I feel like these days the professional sector of journalism is slowly narrowing down to each and every individual holding their own means of saying the truth. I don't know if that makes sense to say. You with the podcast, myself, I'm a podcaster as well. That's a form of journalism. It might not be professional, but it could actually be the truest source of information before you go to university.
Definitely. I've been seeing guys like Piers Morgan, I mean,
Exactly.
Kenan Sharp doing something like that. And I was thinking, like, so for you to be a professional journalist, is that you need to adhere to the ethics and maybe being trained for it formally or informally. But I think the traditional way is that you have to subscribe to a certain media house somehow.
Yeah, it's forever changing, man. I can't lie. Like the media. I'll give you like the atmosphere of even the first world. The first world does not hold much regard to your qualification as a means for you to say the truth. Like honestly, journalism is more like a middleman who is telling you what happens and what transpired, and they go to verify and triangulate information for you to know to say, no, Leko has come up with this theory, and is it true or is it false? And anyone can do that as far as the truth is concerned. The only problem that we have is that we have institutionalized the truth. When you institutionalize the truth, it becomes, of course, to base with very verifiable sources. Say if it's coming from Herald, for instance, you know exactly that Herald is a credible source, but so is a guy who has a camera right on the event, and it's the transpiring of the event and whatever that happened. I don't know if that can make sense.
I think that makes sense. Because
Mm-hmm.
even now, people don't really trust institutions because the news is sensationalized and there's propaganda and all these things. Where you definitely know what to expect from, for example, from Herald.
That's so true. Yeah.
Okay, then going to where I want to talk to today mostly about. I mean, you know much. I've been seeing your videos. You're sharing a lot about policy changes in the UK. What's happening? I saw you did a video when this minister, or member of parliament, announced some proposed things for the UK. So I want to ask my first question. Like, I've seen that the SAGE has decreased from like 2 years ago, when everybody was like, I'm getting COS, I'm going to the UK, my family is coming up. But now it looks like we're no longer seeing people with suitcase at Arajim Gabi going. What's happening? What has changed?
Right. So you see, countries like the UK are mainly based on the demand. It's more like the simple economics that you look at to say when there is demand, there has to be supply. So you notice that Britain came through a lot of I think political upheavals when they introduced the whole Brexit thing took years. Prime ministers were lost. A lot of things happened. And you realize that when Brexit happened, no one expected the response from Europe, because what happened with Europeans, they pulled out of UK.
Mm-hmm.
When they pulled out of UK became desperate for labor, because you realize that before the coming in of the black majority and obviously the Asians and all that are now occupying most of these man jobs, they call them the scarce skills, or highly scarce skills, or the ISCs. That's what I still remember, which is shortage occupation list. I think, yeah, shortage occupation list. Yes. It's something that has been really in the country for a long time. Nurses, doctors, engineers, we're talking about lab technicians, are missing in the UK. And for the biggest part of the Brexit, we then saw the Polish people leaving, because they occupied most of the areas within the UK. They left and went back to their countries, and then that gap was left now to be filled by someone. And when you're in a desperate situation, you do whatever you can to salvage yourself as a country. Hence, they opened up and said, you know what, we still have people that can come into the UK and provide these skills at a low cost. That's the most important thing, the low costs. So the UK then called in the carers. Carers were important in the UK because of the aging population in the UK. They had a lot of they had a lot of older people, and the young generation was not quite keen to take these other jobs after COVID-19 and after Brexit. To be fair with you, since the UK has been sustained by immigration, so that's basically what. Yes. So that's where the problem is coming from. We look at it from Brexit, then we look at it from what's going on now.
Okay. So I'm thinking, like, okay, there was a time when there was an influx into UK with the care. Then it looks like there's been a sudden stop. What really happened there, and what should people do now who want to come?
Right. So the UK is still open. The borders are still open as we speak. Even though recently there's been a petition that was signed by close to 250,000 people that are saying, let's close the borders for UK, right, etc. But as of now, as I'm speaking, the UK is still open for carers, nurses, etc. But the only difference why is sort of a slow system is because when Rishi Sunak's government came through the Conservative government, they came up with what they called, of course it was there even before that, but they moved from what they called free movement to what they call the point-based system. So the point-based system is basically putting a salary threshold of £26,500 to make sure that people can get jobs within that threshold or within that limit of pay. So what then happens?
Is this net or gross?
It's gross. It's a limitation. Say if you are going to employ a person from Africa or from elsewhere who is an immigrant, you need to give them this amount of money. So documents have to show that you are giving them this amount of money. And what are they doing with that? They're trying to discourage the influx of people into the country by raising the threshold of the income that's supposed to be given the carers or the healthcare workers. Basically, it's more like So it's more like saying, back in the days, we used to have this threshold, then now we are raising it so that no one can willy-nilly bring Tichaona from Gokwe, because that's what was happening. Because people were now enterprising bringing people into the UK. And you know the funny thing, recently I was talking to someone who is there's an organization that approached me talking about repatriation of people from UK going back to Africa. Why? Because in Leeds, I'm talking about Leeds only, Leeds area, and covering Yorkshire as it is, they said they have 26,000 stranded carers. You can just imagine 26,000. So yes, so the system, because it had a free movement of people coming in and out as they wish to the UK, they realized that there is enterprising of the certificate of sponsorship or the sponsorship route of the UK, giving people access to millions, if not thousands and thousands of money, paying, right, or getting paid for bringing people into the country. I'm talking about people who paid £8,000 from Zimbabwe. I'm talking about Indians who paid £20,000 to get to the UK.
To come to so when these people came, the jobs were not available.
Yes, because what happens with the health and social care in the UK is that when you bring your staff, you need to show that you have the contracts to give the staff. So it's a self-regulating system. You can't bring people into a job that's not available. So because of that enterprising of the immigration route, many employers were now using the money that they get. They actually got money from workers than from the work. I don't know if it makes sense to say when you are now, a lot of people made millions. I'm telling you, this is like something that is actually ongoing investigations that are going on right now. Carers that were just taken into the country, you are told, you know what I'm going to do is I just need £5,000, right? You pay your £5,000, you get into the UK. Then the employer will tell you, but I told you I don't have hours. So find a switch. A switch is more like a way you change from one employer to the other. And that's not an easy game. That's not an easy game.
Okay, so people that are coming right now, is it more like some of these sponsors were closed and the ones that are left now are the legit ones? We have the actual job to give to the people that are coming in.
The persons who are, some of the crooked ones, to be fair with you, some of them are well known. Some of them have social media pages that you follow. Some of them are even there right now. They are out there enjoying their lives. Like some of them, if someone picks what I'm saying, they know those people, right? And these people are working scot-free. You know why? Because they were quite smart when they were taking money from people. They used to do this system whereby they didn't want to get the money into their bank accounts. So created a system whereby they had someone back home in Zimbabwe or South Africa, right? That person was the one who received money, and they usually called them agents. So agents, what they did was they received money on behalf of employers. You won't say, I can hold on to a name of an employer that made me pay, but you know they made you pay. But through who? An agent. An agent who is on the UK. So the UK government cannot trace who this agent is. Or a family relative. They'll say, you know what, family member, they'll say, oh, if you want to pay for this COS, you need to go and meet William in corner 4th and Jason Moore. That's how it worked. And a lot of people were scammed out of this. And the UK government now, the reason why you now see the whole slowness to the admission of African workers is because this is now concerned, or this is now said to become modern day slavery.
Okay, so would you say that closing that door by raising the stakes the way they did was actually a good way of trying to curb this exploitation that has been done?
I would say it affects the business environment, especially in health and social care, because we still have like hospitals that are dishing out senior residents out of their hospitals. The NHS cannot hold enough patients within their capacity, right? So what then happens is the carers that come all the way from Africa and India, etc., right, are the ones who are supposed to give the care that is supposed to be given in the hospitals at home. You get the point?
Okay. Yeah.
So now we have the elderly stuck in hospital beds or stuck in places they're not supposed to be, or they're supposed to be taken care of because there was a bad immigration system that could not do the right thing or involve or engage in the right manner. So that's where the problem is. So now what I think was necessary was to slow down, because what was going to happen if they didn't slow down? We were going to have, I told you about 26,000 people who are in Leeds, right?
Yeah.
We could have been having right now 80,000 at area. So you see how bad it is, because you are seeing a lot of people being emigrated from their country and immigrated into the UK. Then when they get into the UK, they have no work. They become stranded. Some of them could not even afford food. I'm talking about cases. I'm pretty sure you watch my show. I'm talking about cases of people cases of people who come and tell me that, Tafadzwa, look, I don't have money for food. Tafadzwa, look, I can't afford to get my own English test because it's one of the requirements that are needed for you to get a visa. I can't afford to do it because they can't get work in the UK. It's not allowed for you to employ someone without a visa or who is working for a main sponsor who cannot give them hours. You are married to a sponsor. So that's the problem that's happening within the UK. So it was a necessary evil. It's not a good thing for me to say it's necessary evil, but it was necessary because right now, as you speak, we have millions, if not thousands, of people from Africa who are still asking to come to the UK. That's how bad it is.
Yeah,
That's
and I want to ask. I want to ask. I mean, I want to speak to somebody who is in Zimbabwe, because definitely, I mean, there are people just want to leave. Would you advise them to, like, okay, you can leave in Cape?
That you can leave your country and come to the UK.
Yeah. On a care.
Well, to be fair with you, I would say you make informed decisions based on your situation. I'll give you this, right? There is a gentleman that we happen to help, to get to the UK. The gentleman had the seamless and the flawless immigration process ever in his life. His house was catered for, his transportation, the car and everything was catered for. Everything was on point, but he recently came to the UK. It's not even 2 years, it's a year ago. He managed to come to the UK without any problem. He recently got his wife and his daughters into the UK. That's how good it is when you know where to land. Countries like the UK are not like South Africa, where definitely you're going to meet someone who's going to just give you something to help you with, because it's closer to home. We are talking about over the oceans, thousands and thousands of miles away from home. So a lot of people fail to realize that this is something that is dangerous, to leave your home country to go for a country you have never been before, and then when you get there, you are stranded. So I advise people to still go to the UK. I advise people to still travel and go outside the country, but you should always have a backup plan if anything goes south, because it can go south.
Definitely. And I want to get to something, because when I grew up, when people used to go to the UK, you would have a neighbor, and it was in the 2000s. We were very young, and they have a PlayStation, and the whole street comes, they have a PlayStation, and be like, wow, how did you get it? I'm like, I have a relative in the UK, and these guys would wear things like, there was a distinction between somebody with a relative in the UK and some of us who were at the ghetto, and most people bought houses, and even everything was just top notch. They have these dishes before everybody else. the VCRs before when we were playing the black records, and right now I think there are certain people in Zim still have that mindset that the moment you go to the UK, you're picking up money from the streets, you're rich. What is
my brother,
changed? Yeah.
My brother, I want to tell you this.
Yeah.
Bro, you know what? You know, do not up so that you understand
Yeah.
UK yamunoona pa TV ne UK iripo pa ground zvinhu two zvakasiyana, and vanhu vakawanda vane problem yekuti when they leave for UK from Africa, to be fair to you, vanopicture vakapainta these countries and vakazviudza kuti when I go to the UK, I'm just going, do you know, like a lot of people would say, I'm just going to go there for about a year or 5 years, then, you know, no wait 2 minutes, then over not to get up, but then don't take a land on top of farming projects.
Yeah, exactly, something like that.
Stop it. Mirai, you know, like,
okay.
One thing I've noticed is, if there's anything I've learned, is that the white men understood how to set systems. And those people are smart when it comes to setting systems. You know, like your name, you know, like your name is your currency when you're in the UK. Your record, like if your name is Leko and they know that's your name and they give you a national insurance number, that's your ID. They'll say, yeah, this is exactly how we know this guy. So if you pay your bills well, if you know what you're doing, how you're driving, they will know everything about you. So just imagine people who know how much you're earning, what's your tax code, how much you live, right? Your landlord cannot give you a house if the government does not give them permission, or else they get 1,000 fine. 3,000 fine, I think. Yeah. 3,000 fine. Yeah, 3,000. Any landlord who does that. So we are talking about these restrictive systems that have been put in place that would forever haunt you. I'll give you this, right? You pay your rent, probably rentals, depending on where you live. You pay 700 to 800 or 1,000.2 pounds, right? And you pay your council tax. Your council tax could be 150 or 200 pounds. You pay your gas, right? Gas is quite expensive in the cold country, by the way. So it means plus or minus 150 pounds a month, right? You are paying your water bill. You are paying your car insurance, which could be, if you're in England, West, because the moment you just type in your name to say, my name is Jonasi Sarangate, they'll say, no, this person is not English. Then already the algorithm goes mad on you. Then they give you crazy amounts of insurance. So now picture this, the amounts that I've just given you, this is just the tip, the iceberg of what I've given you. Now imagine how much you're getting paid, because most of these people that are complaining, they don't have hours, right? They don't have, because in the UK, you don't just get salary, like how in the government, in Zimbabwe, whereby you know that month end, whether I work 2 hours or not, I get paid. In the UK, you work for your pound. So now imagine you have worked only 100 hours in a month, then multiply it by the going rate. You're probably if you're lucky enough, you're at 1,000 something, and you have 700 for rent, you have 200 for Chakadaro and 300 for Chakadaro, then you are dry. So now let me go back to your question. Think of it this way. This is the UK that you are talking about, routine. Like, we are not going to 5 years, no, but nobody. Then when I do that, I'm going back to Zimbabwe. That is what I see. 20 years of UK, because the environment cannot reward you. Like how we think. You leave your country, no hassles, 2 minutes, not together. It's restrictive because, one, when you're on visa, you have restrictions to how much you earn, because you're only allowed to do 20 hours after your main job. That's how bad it is. You're only allowed 20 hours, right? And those 20 hours, they're supposed to be
per week?
Yes, per week, 20 hours.
Okay.
And you may look at it and say, that's good money, because you do 40 hours there and do 20 hours. Then you calculate what we do in Zimbabwe. When you're still in Zimbabwe, you're calculating against the zig. And that's dangerous. You calculate against the zig and you'll be like, right, I'm counting 1 zig pounds, mangan, 100, 100 pounds, 50 pence. But then you don't factor in things like tax, cost of living. And some of us are young. You still want to have a family. You still want a child and all. Childcare.
Yeah.
And
just coming on to that. So after factoring all those things for a general care work person, at the end of the day, how much money on an average will you be left with just for savings?
Leko, you're saying savings. I mean, okay. Bro, I understand where you're coming from, because you're picturing this idea of a functional economy, which is fine and totally fine.
Yeah.
But because I really interact with a lot of people who are from UK and who are in the UK right now, and they'll tell you that most of them are hardly affording savings. You'll be shocked about this, and I know it's shocking, but most of people are hardly affording services. Why?
Oh.
Because there's no provision for all that excess. There's no provision at all.
Quite interesting. I have this question because there are other economies in the EU where you pay taxes, right? I'm sure maybe tax can account maybe to 30%, but of the 30%, there is government tax, there is health insurance, there is this and this. But when you want to leave that country, they give you back the government tax that you have been paying. Maybe if you stayed in the UK for 20 years and you say, I want to leave, I want to go back. Is it the same there? Because there are countries like Poland, they do it. They take 12% from you, I think 12%. And if you work there for 10 years and you say, okay, I've been paying the taxes for 12 years and I want to go back to my Zimbabwe, they will give you back your money. Is it the same system this side?
No, it's not the same system. You just go back home. It's the same system, because I mean, like, come to think of it,
wow,
it's a whole different. Like I told you, ariku Zimbabwe achiku kumbira mara 50s na baza. Guys, you know, 50 is a lot of money. Like, I'm new because there is a lot of misconception when it comes to how the environment in the UK is. Like, I'm not saying this is for everybody. I'm not going to get in the comment section. Yes, there are exceptions to it. But majority of people don't have that luxury. I'm not speaking from a personal perspective, but I listen, like I told you, I have a platform. I listen to cases. It's not as easy as it sounds. Like when you're like, how you gave me that question to say, my early 2000s, is that my PlayStation, those are quite simple to get in the UK. But real stuff, it's bad. It's really bad.
Okay, that's quite interesting. So maybe you guys will be giving a wrong perception, the impression, actually, because Mitch post out and stuff, you know, then
no, you okay. One thing I noticed is I'll give you this. Even when I was in Zimbabwe, and show is Facebook right now.
Yeah, definitely.
Is right now. Ndikatoenda kune mumwe team rekuti ndechitoti muchinda uyu atori safe, and in fact fail ndine vanhu vanotoziva, like right now I even know people who are funding some of the people who are in the UK and they're from Zimbabwe, like who are even sending money. I have cases of people who are sending money to UK from Zimbabwe. That's when you realize that the misconception and that cloud of confusion that comes, and everyone thinking Gucci, because you are driving a nice car, that thing you just walk into a dealership, you make a deal, you pay whatever deposit you have, You come out and you're already in your Mac. On that's how the system works. Like come out with and you're looking all nice and polished up, and you look nice because you're in a nice environment, in a lawn, my background and all. But let the truth be said, most of the children that you guys sent back from Zimbabwe, sent to UK from Zimbabwe and from Africa, kids are struggling. Some of them are struggling to make ends meet. And the best thing that we can do as a society is to understand that for now, let's hold that black tax. Let's give them a couple of more years. I think
this is a very good point. And to all the guys that are listening, I think you should at least limit putting pressure on these people, because like you say, there's so many bills, health insurance and all these things, and somebody's thinking like, how do I balance this? And it's different from Zim, I think, where you can, if you don't pay rent, you can negotiate and stuff. Here, there, I'm sure it's very different. You can't compromise on bills. But then I noticed something, that these financial constraints, then they go on to affect the social setup that people in UK have. Because back in Zim, if I'm earning 400 and my wife is not working, we're good. But there, if you're earning that sort of amount and your wife is not working, you're not good. You're definitely number one. So it's kind of like having now both couples having to work. And when that happens, it affects the social dynamics of how roles play in a traditional setup. And so I saw men complaining, Ninya plates and all this stuff. How then do you address those things?
Leko, I have a question for you, right?
Yeah.
And this goes to all men in the UK. Let me put it this way. Do you really think that the weather in Zimbabwe and the weather in the UK are the same?
No, they're different.
They're different. So why then do Zimbabwean men choose to remain with the same mentality when they know and they see that the weather has changed? Bro,
I think change has always been a difficult subject.
Bro,
everywhere.
You know one thing I've noticed with us, I'm going to say this, and I know I'm going to have a lot of bashing, and it's fine, right? One thing I've noticed with us Zimbabwean men, we are rigid when it comes adapting to the needs of places. And I don't know if it's the way we were brought up, but we are sort of rigid. There is obviously a number of people, the remnants. I know one or two people who are at least changing, or they are transforming their perspective. I feel like the reason why we see women now leaving men in the UK, I don't think it's something to do with the inability for women to submit, or inability for women to become maybe, let's say, dependent on the man. It's because when you are in a society whereby you can work and you have equal opportunities, because when you come to the UK, demands anise. When you come to the UK, no one cares if you have a degree. No one cares that you did a PhD. When you get to the UK, all of us go back to the starting line.
Level.
On your marks. You get the point. So as a man, you can't carry that ego around when you know that my wife is working 40 hours and she can probably pay for your dues, right? And when that happens, you then get into the house, you want to act boss. You can't act boss when you're not paying like a boss. Mission goes with how much you give. You get the point. So you get to a society like a UK society, you don't see your woman as a subject. She becomes a partner. And when she becomes a partner, you can't expect your woman to come from the shift. And she wants to rest after a long shift, and you expect her to come and wash your plates that you ate the whole day, or you come and you want to cook, you want her to cook for you because in the baba you're just drinking drinks. So that's the mentality that we carry from Zimbabwe. Like I said, we carry everything else, but we don't realize that weather can also change, and has changed when you come to the country. Why can't we change our mentality as well when we move to another country? I don't know if that makes sense, my brother. Why can't we change as men?
Yeah, it totally makes sense that you now have to realize and do things according to the situation, not to the traditional setups that we have and all that kind of thing. But then I'm thinking, like doesn't that really affect the whole setup? Because if the man is not providing now and he has to do those other chores, then how do you compensate that with being the man in the house?
Okay, here's the thing that happens when you get to to these countries. When you get to these countries, where you navigate through it is you unlearn. That's the truth. The only way you can survive and you can keep your marriage in the UK, you have to unlearn all the cultural ideas we have. Maybe keep things like Remeke Zawakuru and all that. Keep those things. But when it comes to hey, just ignore those and know that you are now in a boarding school setup. You live according to the means where you do like how you're supposed to do. It's a survival mode. So the reason why women end up having to live on their own is because they see that it's a better option, because I don't even have any motoro, like I don't have a load, a dead horse that is pulling me back, because they can afford their own life. So how men should navigate through these problems that I've been airing on my platform for a long time is you need to unlearn everything that you have been taught about who a woman is. Now you need to look at a woman as a partner. Don't mind the washing of plates. Don't mind the etc. Of course, there are exceptions when a woman, because some of them, to be fair with you, I'm not always about them, but some of them are becoming disrespectful because men in Zimbabwe, they were bosses. Now they've come to the UK. They now have that again, but it's due to the behavior we had and the culture we had that they have become animals against us. So when you get there, your life is dependent on this person. It's only 5 years because the UK provides you for like 5 years of working under the skilled worker visa until you get what they call indefinite leave to remain, which is more like a permanent residence status. And when you do that, you are able to now have the autonomy and freedom to go and say, you know what, but it's not what it's not what we recommend. I'm just saying, I think there has to be a lot of unlearning of cultural elements in our Zimbabwean society. And Nigerians are in a pandemic. The pandemic to women are taking over our women. Why? Because they know how to sweet talk. If they know how to sweet talk,
and they do all those duties.
And they don't do duties because they spoil your women. They're hustlers. They like the thing.
Oh I noticed that Nigerians don't want formal employment mostly. They get into the country and they create their own networks and they do their things.
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So
okay.
Mm-hmm.
I just have another scenario. When both people are working, and you take a scenario where maybe the man is able to provide for everything that's needed, but the woman is working also, and the money for the woman, I mean, she does whatever she wants with it. Is that a good setup in those kind of countries?
Whereby we work together, but then a woman is doing whatever she wants with the money.
Yeah, exactly.
And then you are the one who is supposed to take charge of everything and pay for the bills.
Yeah, because you have to provide it.
It's not feasible. It's not practical in the setting. I have given you just a rough figure or a rough estimate of how much you need to just run a normal life in the UK. If you work with that system, okay, just forget what I've said. My brother, when you come from Zimbabwe, no one really has ideas or intentions of settling in the UK. Let's be fair. Everyone had a picture of, I'm just going to go for a few runs. I have to go back by then. And You just think this idea, no. But then when you land on the ground, you realize, no, I think we need to push 10 more years in this country for that point whereby we say we've bought a house, we now have a stand and all that, right? So the only thing you know and you do is to sit down your wife and say, you know what, Mayango, this is the thing that we have to do. On this one, we have to work together. And couples that work together in the UK, they will do amazing stuff. Like I'm telling you, recently there's a guy, you'll be shocked. There's a guy who is less than 2 years in the UK who is already at foundation level, slab level with a house. I think it must be 4-bedroom house. That's how good partnerships are. They told themselves, they're here to hustle. That's it.
Okay, so what I'm getting here is when people get there, they shouldn't get to a point where they're like, it's me and her, but it's just one, you guys working as a partnership. So that even when you're doing the plates, when you have that mindset, I'm sure when you're sweeping the house and stuff, it doesn't come as of like I'm being wife here, but it's us doing our thing.
Us, bro. You know what? Us. You do the nappies, you do the diaper change. It's us. It's our children. You do the childcare. You, bro. There's nothing as, to be fair with you. It's funny though. Most struggling families that came into the UK and have that united front in things, they are doing exploits. They're crazily moving with like fervency because they know what they're there for. So it's not about one person. It always has to be us in everything. And exactly. And you realize one thing, because one person is doing. Okay, two people are covering the social aspect of the marriage. No one is born to do one thing, right? No one is born or designed to do the plates. We both can do it, even though we know that women will always, if we are all on an off day, definitely there's no way your wife, if she's coming from the people, there's no way your wife would say, stand up, now go and do your plates. No, that's not how it works. But what we're saying is, when we are at a position whereby your wife is hustling for the family, you also have to hustle for the family. You meet halfway. That equilibrium is what will shock the world. That's my point, to say we can't keep the archaic belief of saying, oh, South Africa watching this, it won't work like that, because here we are here to hustle. We're here
exactly. Okay, then I'm noticing something that I've been missing that I didn't say. I think the aspect of children coming into the setup, because when you're speaking of these expenses, I really saw some expenses about children. What would you advise to people who want to make a bigger family in the UK? Is it very expensive for childcare and everything aside?
Oh, my bro.
Come on, I don't want to discourage people.
Okay, here's the thing with children. Do you know that, like, recently the UK government, I don't know, maybe I might be missing something, but there must have been a report that was talking about how slowly, due to introduction of pro-family immigrants like Africans, Indians, and Arabs, right? The UK has been skeptical, has been actually predicting. They did a prognosis of the future and said by 2045 or somewhere thereabout, the community may become a minority. The reason being, right, they are looking at the birth rate of the people they have put in. So what they do is they look at us, right, and they see how much we give birth. And when we do, because some of us Africans, we understand the concept of having children as an investment, but here, because of the price of taking care of the child, to them, children are not just like what we do. Some of us, don't worry about some other things. They are particular about the growth of their children. They look at the environment, they look at the, they put extra accessories to children, like unlike us. They are more cautious about having a child. To them, having a child is a big deal. Hence why those who utilize business opportunities when it comes to children or childcare, they will hit them hard because it's a rare occasion to have a child in that setting or in that community. So that, because there is low demand, it spikes the prices high, and your nursery, so the government sometimes has to chip in and help you to pay and all. And now, how does that affect the African, like you said? How does that affect the African? The African now, the problem, how it's affecting us is that when you get to that system, you can't afford to take your child for 5 days nursery. I'm telling you, it's impractical. You know why? Because they charge, the last time I know, they charge £5 an hour, if I'm not mistaken. £5
for nursery.
Yeah, an hour. And we're talking about 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 1, 2, 3 most of the times. Some can get to 6. Right. Now, when you calculate that amount, now multiply it by 5, then multiply it by 4. That's the month. And that amount of money is golden for an immigrant. That's gold. They bought Masagaya cement.
So if you have like 2 kids, then whatever. 3 kids. Oh, okay. Then are there any grants, that social grants or something that the government gives to those with kids?
Yeah, if you're an immigrant, you get only 15 hours a week of childcare, which means you're able to take your child. If it's a nursery with 7-hour shifts, right? Or 7-hour shifts, you're able to take your child for 2 days. But if it's like for 8 to 6, you take 1 day, depending on the flexibility of the school. But if you're now a local person, I think you have more hours, 30 hours, if I'm not mistaken, that they give you to encourage, because they also do this to encourage people to have children.
Okay, I was talking with a friend, and they say that so if you have like 3 kids and maybe you have a boy and a girl and a boy, like each children has to have their own room, and maybe if they are boys they can share something like that. And now I'm thinking about the rentals, like, okay, I mean these are 3 kids, I can just bunch them in one house. I mean, why? So they enforce that, and what are the penalties for those things?
Well, I know that, like, there is the legal implication of having children in one room and all, like how, people are. This is just cheap talk. Okay, I'm not going to call it cheap talk because it's your friend who said it, but I'm just going to say some of these things are just scare tactics or scare things that people say as social workers and whatever when they talk, right? But there is some impracticality of it when you're coming from Africa and you 3 children. There's no way you can say each child can have a room. It's impractical. It's not feasible. You can't have that setting. So yes, there could be a policy that says a child is right to freedom and playground. They do come. To be fair with you, it's true. They do come for assessment. They send someone from, I think, to the NHS. Yeah, they send someone to your house. If you have a toddler, if you have a kid, they'll send someone. Like, they'll literally come, do a report. Does the child have enough space, room for playing in the house? Then they will tell you, you have passed. So they do have those systems in place. But what I say is, there is the other part of the practicality of it. To for some people who brought children all the way from Africa, these children were not done in the UK. They came from Africa. And definitely when they now do vis-a-vis your income, there's no way they can say, we expect to move into a 4-bedroom house. I think there might be some exceptions to it. I don't know much about this in particular, but what I know is there is less to do with how punitive measures are taken towards people with 4 children or 3 children. It's just something that I wouldn't say it's a big deal. I wouldn't say that.
Okay, then there's this topic. I'm sure now it's closed since the spousal visa. I think it's kind of like but there was a time when people were marrying for visas, right? So and then when they get there, I mean, there's no relationship. How do those people navigate it? Does the marriage just end the time you get there? But if it ends because you're on my visa for 5 years, you can't just be roaming around dating other people as well. How do people get over with that?
So because of limited certificate of sponsorships, and also the fact that some people wouldn't be wanting to pay, let's say 20,000 for sponsorship, like how I've actually mentioned that some people were selling COSs for £20,000, right? Some people would actually choose to say, you know what, let's just do a court wedding. Maybe it's a boyfriend and girlfriend. Do a court wedding, then you go to the UK, then you start processing paperwork, that you have pictures. If it's not a boyfriend and girlfriend, you can have an arrangement to say, oh, I have a COS and I can bring a dependent. Would you like to do it for a certain fee? Some of them did. I know who, so that you don't come for me. I know you, Zimbos. I don't know who did it. So, but people would do such a thing and have an arrangement to get into the country. Then you pay them, then you come under the visa, and then you can go around and do whatever you want in a different city or in a different country. But I want to put a very, very red mark on that point, right? It has its dangers, however, in the near future. How? Like I told you that the systems in the UK will always find you. Eventually, they're good at finding the wrongdoers. How? Because you guys have council taxes, right? The council tax, when you rent out a house or when you rent a house, they have to know who is in that house and how many adults are there. And if you're living with a child, if you're living just the both of you, they have to know who is the man and who is the wife. They have to know those details, right? Then you then come into a property as a woman, and you're the one with the guy who is now in Leeds or in for down there, and you have occupied the house in Manchester. Then the name of that guy is not on your council tax bill. That means this guy is not living in that property. And his banking details are not saying, I live at number 2 Manchester Road in Manchester, in Tilsley. They will say, why is it this man was living in Leeds and you living in Manchester for the longest time? Because your banking details are showing this, and this guy's banking details are showing this. Because at some point, you have to submit some of these documents to the Home Office when you're applying for certain things. Like, for example, your council tax, they now ask your council tax. So it's very important for people to know the implication of doing that. So most of these people, some of them are questioned even at the border to say, do you know the person coming for? Oh, yes, it's my wife. Oh, you married each other. Now, can you tell me maybe probably where they live? You can't answer. Okay, can you please call to do something? Or maybe you might have arranged, you call each other. The conversation is not natural. You then realize it. They catch you. And in the near future, it's going to be detrimental. Some people can go scot-free. I wouldn't say I advise people to go that route, because that route is a dangerous one, because eventually the system,
okay,
they say the house always, yeah, it will, definitely, it will.
Yeah, because I was thinking that even if you fake it, when you want to do the proper marriage, so you have to go through another divorce, then you do your proper marriage instead.
That part is actually the hardest, because when you're now trying to initiate a divorce from the UK on a Zimbabwean marriage, you need to get your pockets stacked up. You need like good monies. That's how it works. You can't expect a lawyer to just come and do pro bono stuff for you, like stuff. There's no. So you need a divorce lawyer in Zimbabwe, start fixing things. But it's rare for a person who is on a dependent visa as a man, right? I've had cases of women who actually want to reverse their marriage deal when someone is now in the UK. Like you have a deal with Lego, say, come under my visa. You pay me £5,000. Then you pay £5,000. You get to the UK. Then halfway in 2 years, the wife says, you know what? I now have my partner. I now have a different that I want to marry, and I think you're now an impediment to my marriage. I want to go back to Zimbabwe and marry my man, whom I found here in Manchester. Now I need you to divorce me and get your own visa. And then when you now get your own visa as a dependent, get what? You now need to do the whole process that everyone did, which is to do your English test. You go and sit for your English test at the British Council, and that process could be long. And for a person who just came in, who walked into the UK, I think it's just too much of a hassle. Just get a skill, and get to the country. Yeah,
I'm actually getting the complexities right now. Then I'm thinking, like, apart from this marriage thing and all that stuff, how about relationships? I saw a post that you did, I think 3 days ago, when you're saying some of these relationships, they're transactional, it's business. Like, you have to be very careful. I'm sure your name Tafadzwa Insights. You have insights into realities of, is this a real thing or game? So how are people now, navigating towards, real relationships in those transactional relationships? How do you get off that?
The thing is, when you're in a country with a lot of opportunities and opportunistic ideas, I'll give you this as an example. There's a guy who came into one of my platforms, and told me that there was a lady who got into a relationship with him because she wanted childcare. So all along, she was just pretending to love the guy because things were so hard. So she wanted someone who can at least say, no, baby, you know what, just take care of the child. And that's how bad things can be. That's how transactional things can be in a country like this. So this guy ended up realizing, oh no, I left my wife and I thought this woman was, and I was like, bro, you should have known. You should have known that in this country, it's fast life that is like, okay, imagine, bro, I know you know Harare. Imagine how fast Harare is. Now imagine how faster the UK is. Everyone is just out to get you. You get the point? Everyone is out to get you. So definitely there are vouchers, there are people who take advantage of you. There's that guy who was, I think about last year, who was inviting girls for shows. And there was a lady from South Africa who came to the UK. She got stuck here. And the guy was now asking for exactly, and he was now asking for thing. And that's the nature of this country. You have employers. Unfortunately, we didn't talk much about the employer side. It's even worse. Employers are the worst when it comes to perpetuating abuse in the UK.
Yeah, I have a guy. I think he was a sponsor or something, and then the lady complained. Then he takes us and it's like, she's crazy. She thinks that I can just sponsor her to come for free. My charity case, because he was now demanding, and she was like, he abused me and all this stuff. And he was like, no, that was transactional, bro.
Exactly. So there's a lot of transactional and socio-economic issues that happen in this country that if you're not careful, you're just a transaction and you think you have a partner. So it's very possible that a lot of people are falling into this trap. And sadly, you're far from home. So you're far from home. It's so it's that's how the nature is in the capitalistic world. Unfortunately, it's capitalism that's to blame.
Well, so how do I then get off that? Because the world will always be the world.
How do you get off? The honest truth is, at some point, I think as Africans, we just need to know that there is something called fixing back home. It's something that is not welcomed by a lot of people. People think that settling is a good idea, but my brother, I think the best version of us is in Africa. The best version we can be is found in Zimbabwe or in Africa. So I think for most of us, We need to find means and purpose back home. If it means investing back home, if it means, okay, you're afraid of Zimbabwe, invest at least nearer to home, at least nearer to home, at least when the sun lands, because we can't be using supplements all the ways, vitamins and all that. It's not healthy. So I think it's very important for people to get out of this whole problem by investing back home. That's my advice. Just
Okay,
invest
because
back home.
I was going to the end of our discussion. I'm sure this is gonna need a part two because there's so many things that we should talk, because the nitty gritties, we're just touching on stuff. But I'm sure there's, because most people in out there in Zim, they just want to know, how the day goes on, how the week goes on, how the month goes on, so that when they come, they won't be shocked. But lastly, before I round this off, I want to talk about the social life, because when now you're talking about people having to work from morning to, then they have to take the extra hours, and then on weekends you said it's a capitalistic world, which means we are always chasing the paper. Tine time elevela pa bridge ne boys tombotaura ona mana mukone munhu arikupfuura pakona apa mudhara pasira apa, Lefty, do we have that, or that's totally gone?
Marriages are destroyed in the UK. Some, like, we've already covered some of the parts, right? But exhaustion is one of the reasons why some of the marriages are poorly performing in the UK, and that's part of the effect of the social part of life. If a woman cannot perform some of her, that other side duties, due to the way the work is so busy. Now imagine having time to go and just spend time with the boys or the girls there on the streets, because marriage is an important institution. So the UK, because of it's forever needing you to just put out your blood, it's forever in constant demand of your effort, your power, your mental and your psyche. So how do you expect the social life to be perfect and pristine when you have such a system? The honest truth, my brother, is a lot of people have failed. Last week, but one, I was saying bye to a gentleman who said, I'm done. His wife was coming back from work at 11. His children would come, but they spend their time in the bedrooms. He no longer has any connection with his family. He no longer has any connection with his wife. The wife, when she comes home, she wants to bath, eat, and go to sleep. So the man said, like, this is, I'm being frank. The man said, you know what? I'm selling my car. I'm done. I'm packing my bag. I'm going. And I said, why? Why do you want to go to Zimbabwe with how things are tough? He said, you know what? I would rather die with hunger in Zimbabwe than die with depression whilst I have a piece of bacon on my plate. That's how deep the African life has actually been socially dragged. We are very social people. Yeah,
definitely. You see what I'm thinking is, because when you say that quote, then when I'm scrolling on Twitter and I'm seeing people saying that I would rather cry eating than to starve. Like, it looks like two opposites worlds. Maybe it's because they haven't experienced the other side of the world, so their judgment is like, I'd rather cry while eating than starve while being happy.
Bro, when you have, I think what happens is when you are in a country like Zimbabwe, you underestimate the kind of freedom and peace that it gives you in a country like Zimbabwe. I know we have a whole messed up system, and I'm not taking that away from the people who are struggling, right? But what I've noticed is there is so much exaggeration that people give us, when it comes to survival and all. I just need to go to a country whereby I can afford this, bro. There are places, like, when you come to the diaspora, you realize that even with the £1,000 in your pocket, you may not have someone to spend that money with. in real time, in real life. You can't have someone to say, Leko, can I call you and let's meet by the pub? Leko will tell you, I'm running for a shift, because that 1,000 means nothing to him. It means nothing to him because there are far more important things than what you call social life in this world. It's like a luxury. It's not given to everyone. You get the point? So what ends up happening is you realize that slowly. That's why people are waking up cold, or I don't know if that's good English, but they're just you wake up, we wake up and feed them cold. You get the point? It's happening. A lot of people, because of depression, a lot of mental health issues. Because to be fair with you, the reason why a lot of people are happy right now with the situation in Zimbabwe is because when you go out of your street, go by the street, you chill by the gate, you see these kids running around with mama tire and all, and that can just warm your heart. You miss that. You miss that life when you're away from home. When you just go and you see Tariro and Chipo in the street talking, you miss that life, and you can't have it because all you see when you leave your house are streets and cars passing. That's all you see. So the social life of people will say, I want to go and enjoy bacon and whatever in the UK, and it's you wouldn't understand it until you get into the situation. You realize that there are so many things that matter more than just income. So many things. You die with a very, very fat pocket. That's how it works. That's how it works in the diaspora.
Interesting. Okay, so I just want to close with this, that it's a dilemma, because I'm thinking, like, for somebody in Zim to grasp that, they're gonna be, no, bro, I wanna go, I'll see it when I get there. And for somebody in the UK to grasp that, they'll be like, yeah, I've been there. This guy is here. So I think sometimes experience is the best teacher. And and there are certain things that you can say and people will never get it, but they only understand it when they go through the same page.
Yeah, that's true. You're correct, my brother. You're correct. You've got to experience it. I know so many people have even commented to say, if I had known this is the UK they talk about, I shouldn't have come, because some let go of very precious opportunities elsewhere in Zimbabwe, and you need to just have. I think, like, you, my brother, you're Christian and I'm Christian as well. You know what? When we say that everyone has a purpose, some people are built for. There was just an opportunity, but there was no voice that could tell us to not take some of these opportunities. An opportunity availed itself without a calling or without a purpose, a real purpose for a person. So some of the people are doing well. Like I told you, some have built houses, are building houses. Some are doing amazingly well. Some are striving marriage-wise, but in Zimbabwe they were not doing well because of that partnership thing. So it all depends. There's checks and balances, but what I can deduce from everything is that it's not just a pie, what do you call a rose that you just pick in the park and walk in the park as well. It's not like that. You have to work for it, and some of it is to sacrifice your social life for icon, I think, and cheese.
Okay, well, that was quite an insightful talk. I mean, there were a lot of insights in what you said, and I'm sure some people will learn also from this. And I think the most important thing, like you said, when you're dealing with things per case, people, I remember Kuma Chechi said, like it can be dealt with on a personal basis. But this basic information will just help you also in your decision making. But your story, and how you want to live it.
Actually, I want to thank you for this conversation, because to be fair, I had prepared statistics, Mdara. I had come my policies, deal breakers, but for some reason, because you zeroed it down to a personal experience, what I hear, which is something that I appreciate for this conversation, because it's just given me this purpose to say we need to educate more people about how to migrate. It's a very important topic, that how to migrate.
Definitely, because the goal is, even when I was in Zim, my goal was, I just want to leave. I'll see what I can do when I get there. But for now, I just want to go out of here. Then later on, you realize, but kind of thing.
Exactly. Yeah. So there's really need for people to be educated on how to migrate. It's funny how we say it, but people need to know how to leave the country the right way. Yeah.
Definitely. I'm sure you guys hear it all. And as always, with the Great Air Talk, we're going to be bringing you more topics. And you can subscribe to this channel, Leco, and also at zimcelebs.official. Thank you. Signing out. Thank you, Mr.